Welcome back to Comics with Drew. I'm Drew, and this is a stream of consciousness video about The Lord of the Rings, and specifically about the adaptation of The Lord of the Rings for Amazon. I've not talked about this, and the reason I've not talked about it is because The Lord of the Rings is my favorite movie. It's one of my favorite books. I've read The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, and I've been in the theaters to see Lord of the Rings movies probably at least 16, 17 times. And I just love those films. And normally I wouldn't talk about this because there's not really anything that I can necessarily add to it. A lot of people are talking about the fact, oh, well, there's, African-American dwarves and Galadriel is like some battle warrior princess and all this stuff, and the fact of the matter is that it's not the Lord of the Rings. And it's not that, these things are bad to put into, modern fantasy stories. It's just that that's not the Lord of the Rings. Some people will say that, well, you don't like this because it's progressive. And you're right. I don't like it. And it's not because it's necessarily that it's progressive. It's just that it's not the Lord of the Rings. So if you're going to adapt something, adapt the IP the way that it is. If you don't like the IP, then don't adapt it. Right? You don't need to add in a bunch of stupid stuff to it. So I was reading this Bounding into Comics article where Chuck Dixon was talking about the fact that it was an abomination what they're doing with The Lord of the Rings. And they're trying to inject it with the zeitgeist of 2022. And 5 years from now, it's going to look absurd. And I would say that it looks absurd in 2022 directly. Because the fact of the matter is that a lot of media these days and a lot of entertainment is being co-opted by people that have an agenda. They have a social agenda or they have a political agenda, and they're not really interested in putting out just good entertainment. It's like they have to do entertainment, they have to make entertainment that gets across the message, like, again, the critical drinker would say. And it's not even just that. There are other people that try to get the opposite message into their media. And the fact of the matter is that you don't need to do that. You just need to make good stories. And if you want to show good values, you want to showcase values that you think are timeless or are valuable to the human experience, then you can write stories that incorporate those values without beating people over the head with it. An example of this would be in The Lord of the Rings, where Frodo, who is this tiny little dude, in a land of giants, essentially, takes this magic special weapon and then goes all the way across the planet in his world to throw it into a giant volcano. And he has no special skill set. He's got no special, powerful abilities. He's physically the weakest person, but he does it because it's the right thing to do. And his buddy, Sam, is loyal to him and will not forsake the bonds of friendship and will go with him literally to the gates of hell. And they all do it no matter how hard it is because they know it's the right thing to do. And that's the value that Tolkien was trying to get across with The Lord of the Rings. He said in a subsequent interview that The Lord of the Rings is a fundamentally Catholic work. Well, if you read it, you're not going to see Jesus mentioned anywhere, right? You're not going to see God mentioned anywhere. You're not going to see the apostles mentioned anywhere. But the values that are espoused by Christianity, in Tolkien's estimation, are all throughout The Lord of the Rings. It's important that when you're adapting any kind of intellectual property, you understand that. And I think a lot of the problem here is that there are people who actually hate those values. You don't walk in to the Louvre and then take the Mona Lisa off the wall and then start putting in, blush on her face and dyeing her hair blue because you need to make her modern, right? The Mona Lisa is a work of art. These IPs are works of art. You don't need to come in and change them. Now, people will say, well, you can't just adapt something straight. That's stupid. And to that, I'd say, yes, you're correct. You can't necessarily adapt something directly because books are not TV and TV shows are not movies. So you have to make some kinds of compromises. And that's what Jackson did with The Lord of the Rings. There's no Tom Bombadil in The Lord of the Rings movies. There aren't that many songs that the hobbits sing as much as they do in The Lord of the Rings. but that's just to make sure that we get a runtime that's coherent. Jackson doesn't screw around with the values of the Lord of the Rings. We don't need Battle Angel Galadriel, because that's not who she is. Galadriel is a strong woman. She's a strong female character, and we don't need her to be out there on a battlefield to show how strong she is. You know, you're missing the point when you try to put this character in some kind of context that you think is like equivalent to what men are, because, you know, you have to have strong women. Women aren't strong because they can go to battle like men are. Men aren't compassionate because they can take care of people like women like to take care of people, right? You know, they do these things in their own special ways, and they complement each other. And that's one of the major points and problems that you come across with these adaptations. So The Lord of the Rings is getting hammered and screwed over, and Halo is getting hammered and screwed over. The people that are making Halo say, oh, well, we need to show Master Chief's face because that's part of the story. Master Chief's face doesn't need to be shown because it's never been shown in the games. So, and then they need to make these all these different Space Marines. They need to have, you know, a bunch of different female Space Marine, and no one is, look, this is not the point of why the IP is successful. If you don't like the IP, don't adapt the IP. If you wanted to make a Lord of the Rings television show, you could certainly do it, and you could respect the actual material, and it would be wildly successful. I would watch it. But here I am, as a major Lord of the Rings fan, someone who has sat in a theater for 12 hours in a row on Trilogy Tuesday way back in the day. I would be there. I would be there every week, and I would happily talk about how awesome the show is, but I can't do it because you're not making the Lord of the Rings. I'm the built-in fan base. You're not going to get new fans. All you're going to do is piss people off. Another example of this is Anne of Green Gables. Netflix had an Anne of Green Gables show. They had to take a character who was a single woman and make her a homosexual. That's not in the book. But what it did was it alienated the fan base for the Anne of Green Gables books. You know, people that were fans of the original Canadian series back in the 80s, and it failed. How many times are we going to have to watch an IP crash and burn? Cowboy Bebop, Netflix, destroyed. Anne of Green Gables, Netflix, destroyed. Halo, Paramount, destroyed. The Lord of the Rings, Amazon, destroyed. They're taking all these things that people love and wrecking them. How much money has to be burned before we learn the lesson? And I'm not even going to get into Star Wars, at least not now. Man, I could do a whole video. I could do a hate watch stream on The Last Jedi because I hate that movie. I hate that movie. I hate that movie more than any. By the way, and I wasn't going to do it, but I'm going to say this. I will say this about The Last Jedi. I hate The Last Jedi more than I hate any other form of media, period. Any other piece of entertainment, any other movie, any other TV show, any other novel, any other comic book, any other pamphlet, any other song, any form of entertainment. I hate The Last Jedi more than all of those things combined. I despise that movie. I hate that movie. So, I don't like it. I was thinking maybe I should do one of these reaction videos. Only I'm not really reacting. I'll just, do the video where I watch the movie and I comment about the things that just piss me off about it. I might do that. Let me know in the comments if you'd like to hear something like this. So this has been a stream of consciousness rant. Basically, the point of the matter is that people should not try to adapt IPs that they don't like, right? If the IP doesn't match your values, make your own IP. Make a brand new IP and then see if it works. And if it works, then awesome. You're making all the money. And that's fantastic. And all you're doing right now is just taking the fan bases that are built in over the course of sometimes a half of a century and setting fire to it in some kind of quixotic quest to virtue signal. You're not going to find what you're looking for. The people that are doing this are not going to find ultimate satisfaction. They're not going to make something that's lasting. And that's important. I think a lot of the people that are trying to adapt these IPs, they're trying to do important big things, right? And they're ignoring the fact that their primary jobs are to entertain. They are in the entertainment industry and their jobs are to make entertainment that people enjoy. But they get in their head that this is not good enough. They need to make something that's lasting and quote unquote important. And the way that they can do that is by refraining from destroying established intellectual properties and then making their own. And then if they make their own, then it can be lasting and it can be fantastic and no one will complain about it. It will come into its own. It will find the zeitgeist right now, right in the here and now of 2022, and people will enjoy it, and then they will talk about it for decades to come. But you've got to actually make the effort to do that. So I am actually not going to watch The Lord of the Rings. I am not one of these YouTube people that watches something and then says it's so terrible and then continues to watch it so they can make more videos about it. I'm just not going to watch The Lord of the Rings TV show, period. So I might talk about it when I see articles about it, but I'm not going to watch it. I'm not going to review it. That's my stream of consciousness rant today. And I'll be back shortly with a new review, a Takabon review. I picked up Love is War per the recommendation of one of you fine viewers. And I will go ahead and review that. So again, thanks for watching Comics with Drew. I'm Drew, and I'll catch you next time.